Don't you just hate it when Hollywood picks a title that has absolutely nothing to do with the film? It's just like a word, but it sounds cool. And you're like, what does that mean for the film, though? Well, fret not, young man, because this one is telling you exactly what the film is about. And this is the literal opposite of what that is when you get sort of like a boring title. I'm John Stark from BackTheMovieGuy.com. I'm your favorite blind film critic, and this is The Young Woman and the Sea. It is about a young woman and the sea. So, it's very accurate. Disturbingly so. Um, the only way that they could have made that more obvious would be young woman swimming across the sea. Would have been the even more obvious title for the film. This is on Disney Plus. It has audio description, and I'm going to review it. I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to. I'll tell you why. I'll let you in on a secret. It put me to sleep. I fell asleep during this film. So, I made it through like most of the, I mean, actually, I think she was like almost there. She was like, there were like jellyfish, and she was like swimming through the jellyfish, like really inspirational. And she was like super close to the shore. I don't remember anything else after that. So that's why I don't know who did the audio description because I started to doze and I woke up and I was like, oh, the movie's over. Fuck. Oh, she was almost there. Like, I feel that. Like, the movie had been going for a while. I made it like almost to the end. And like, yeah. Don't look at me about spoilers because this is a historical film based on the first woman to swim the English Channel. So it's sort of like Naiad. It's like, she's going to make it at the end of the film. Like, it's more about the journey and like the training and her backstory and like where she came from. And can we give Daisy Ridley work in case we ever need her to do Ray again so she's not like completely irrelevant? She seems to get very little work for somebody who's been in such a big role as she's been in. Um, and I fully support more acting from Daisy Ridley. I just don't know why she's not in more things. Those are two totally different things. Yeah, it was just so boring. I was just so bored during this whole film. I guess part of it is that it's like, how the film's going to end, and you really want it to be exciting, and you're like, oh, well, there has to be something specific about the journey. Not really. Especially if you've seen Naiad. I think Naiad was a little bit more entertaining than this, and they really made you feel like, well, maybe she won't make it, you know? Of course, Diana Naiad like tried it multiple times before she succeeded. So unless you paid attention to exactly how many times and like what trip we were on, it was sort of like, well, how many times, Trudy it's less of that. It's less of a challenge. It's more, it's not as, I don't even think it's that long of a film, but we spend a lot of time moving rather quickly through her life too, which is another thing that I sort of had a problem with. I don't know. I just think it's the most boring way to do this film. It's like a very sort of traditional standard biopic. And I think if you've got somebody in the water and you're swimming, you're trying to break up the monotony, we could have dealt with her like in the water and then slowly been picking up these memories and these you know what I'm saying? Like, to break up the monotony of like somebody swimming for like a long period of time, which she doesn't encounter. There's no shark cage. Like, people aren't worried about these things. It's kind of surprising when they come across jellyfish and they're like, oh, there's some jellyfish up ahead. And she's just like, fuck it. And she just swims through the jellyfish. So, like, that's literally the most interesting thing that happens, because you're like, is she really just going to swim through the jellyfish? And you just hear her getting, like, stung, and she's like, ah. And you're like, damn, girl. So I would have broken up the monotony of it, of this whole thing, because otherwise most of the movie is just like people on a tugboat shouting at her while she's in the water. That's like half the movie, easily. Is that? Um, they try to make it more interesting with reporters, but none of the reporters have any backstory. So it's not even like they could give one of the reporters who's watching this a backstory about how, oh, this seems like a nothing case, but I wanna take this on. I want to be the first one to report this. Nobody thinks she can do it, but I think she can do it. I'm gonna be the guy. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there are so many other ways. Some of them are tropes, admittedly, but there are ways that you could break this up so that it's more interesting than this. I just thought this was really basic and kind of dull. And to come after Naiad, which got 2 Oscar nominations, um, I was like, where would these nominations come from? Daisy really doesn't have half the performance that Annette Bening did in Naiad. I'm sorry. I like Daisy and I want her to have a long career. But if this was opening during Oscar season, she wouldn't even come close. Like, no one is going to be predicting her for anything. The supporting cast, we've got, I would say most notably here, Stephen Graham is trying to like wave his face around so that later on, in case he's any good in Blitz, people will be like, didn't we see you in something earlier this year? Unfortunately, again, I don't think that many people are watching this. It's on Disney Plus. I is he is he exceptional? No. Do I think Rhys Ifans, who basically had the same role, did a better job? Yeah, I do. Um, so it's I don't know. This film, I just felt like I just saw it less than a year ago and it was better. And it was called Naiad. Um, the movie was more exciting. I didn't fall asleep. I was engaged. I would watch Naiad again. I wouldn't watch this again. Um, the acting, they gave Annette Bening and Jodie Foster more to do. Here, it really is moving like super. It feels like you're getting like a play, like the greatest hits before she gets in the water. And it's like, if we're going to do the greatest hits thing, why don't we do it while she's in the water, so that way we don't spend the whole time just staring at somebody swim. It's just, I would have totally just done this a complete different way, as a director, as a writer. I think this is the least interesting way to approach this film. It's kind of like a 7 on IMDb, so I think a lot of people disagree with me. It has a decent Metacritic score, not really high. It was like a 60, I think, which is not awful. So people are like, yeah, it's fine. I don't think it's a bad movie. I just think it's dull and kind of mediocre, boring. It's middle of the road. Um, it's not like, I don't think anybody did a bad job here of acting. I just think, when you pick a title like Young Woman in the Sea, it kind of highlights how uninspired the movie is. It's like they can't find a better title. Even just naming the film Trudy would have been interesting. Like, Trudy, huh, cool. Or, the English Channel or the Channel, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, there are like other things that are relevant to this film. And, we just didn't do that. We were just like, throw it in the water. People will want to watch her swim for long periods of time. It's like, I don't know that that's the case. If you look at like every other sports movie, generally it's broken up by scenes. We don't actually watch the sport in action done by actors for that long. It's usually broken up by minutes, generally because the people can't play that sport for very long. That has a lot to do with it. So I don't know how long Daisy Ridley trained to be able to convincingly swim, like Annette Bening did. Annette Bening had to train to be able to pull off her role. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what level of training she did for this, so that they could keep those shots on her, so that they could really sustain this. We're on a boat. They do cut away sometimes, but it's like rare. Like later on in life, they cut away to her mom, who's like worried, and she busts into, I think, NBC, and because they're getting the updates as soon as they come in, and she wants to hear the updates on her daughter as soon as she comes in. And she's just like a dull person. Trudy had like the most boring parents. Just like they're not really likable. They're just kind of like aggressively um lack of personality. Literally, like at the beginning of the movie, Trudy's like swimming. Is her dad ties a rope to her and tells her to go in the ocean. And I'm like, okay, this this is a this is how we did things back in the day. This rope will keep you safe. There's no way you could possibly get out of this rope. But instead of trying to do anything with it, because you hear her, I mean, she's super excited about swimming. So she runs in there and she just dives like headed, and her dad's like freaking out. It's like, Trudy, no. And then she just pops up and it's like, oh, it's adult Trudy. So there was no conflict with that scene. We set up conflict and we just didn't resolve it. I don't know. This is just a really weird film. And yeah, I did. I don't fall asleep that often. But I was trying to watch this film. I was trying to be engaged in this film. And I just wasn't. And do I think if Naiad hadn't come out that this film would have been a little bit more interesting? Sure. I think the fact that the whole time I was kind of like, but this is like right after Naiad. Like I was thinking that. I was like, Disney's putting this out. And I think there's a reason for that. I think Naiad happened and Disney had this film and they just kind of looked at it and they were like, this is kind of a nothing burger of a film. So it just kind of got a quiet summer release and then a slide onto Disney Plus when they were sort of like in the middle of needing content. When they were in the middle of like premieres and stuff. They're like, well, we don't really have a movie right now. So where's that Daisy Ridley movie so that we can make people feel like that they're justified in their subscription prices? Yeah, it's just, I don't know. It was just disappointing. Like I said, I'm a hopeful fan for Daisy Ridley. I want to see her in more things. I want to see her in things though that get to show off her personality. And this doesn't really ever do that. Most of the time she's in the water, she's just playing like a random determined athlete. Cool. We don't develop her enough. I don't really get to know enough about Trudy and her relationships to other people. It's like, I don't know, the film feels like it's moving really fast so that they can get her in the water and we can stare at her for most of the film. And I would have loved to just get to know her more. I think the swimming is the least interesting thing. Like watching somebody swim for long periods of time. And obviously, like, there are moments where it's interesting. It's like, oh, she got to the halfway point. Wow. Congratulations. Or this is the first attempt and she only gets this far. So it's like, but you have to break it up. There has to be more than this. This just has to be better done. I just don't think it's directed well. Which also starts with the script. I don't think the director looked at the script and then reorganized everything. I think a writer was like, well, I'm just going to write a straight forward biopic. It doesn't really work. It didn't work here. So, audio description wise, I don't really have too much to say. I don't know who it was. To the point where I don't want to commit to it. I mean, I felt like I recognized the voice. But like, I don't want to commit in case it's the wrong voice. It's probably Deluxe. Deluxe has been doing a lot of stuff for Disney, but it may not be Deluxe. I don't know. It was okay. It was fine. Like I said, she spends a lot of time in the water, and there are only just so many ways you can describe somebody swimming. I mean, she's swimming the same way. The film, sort of the unique thing about the film and about Trudy is that she doesn't quite swim the right way at the beginning because somebody actually taught her. She kind of just taught herself. She was a natural swimmer. So like everybody's always like looking at the way that she swims. She relies heavily on her legs. So she has like these really strong legs, but she's when she originally starts swimming, like, they don't want her because she doesn't swim the way she's supposed to. And when you really get into it, it's really hard to, like, highlight that and be like, Trudy's kicking with her weird legs. That's just something that they have to, like, sort of explore through dialogue. Uh, so, I mean, she encounters gray skies at one point, which increases the surf. She encounters some jellyfish. I don't know, man. There's the action here is really low. I feel like the film did okay. It is a period piece. I think the film did okay with that. With specific references, I remember one guy had like a newsboy hat, pageboy hat. Is that what it's called? Pageboy hat or something like that. On that flew away. I felt like that was very of the period. So yeah, I think there's stuff here. I'm not gonna say it's a bad audio description track. Did I expect the audio description to keep me awake? No. But yeah, I made it through most of the film, man. I made it all the way, like, I made it past the jellyfish, and then she was getting into, in case anybody watches this film, she was getting pretty close to land. She was getting to the point where the tugboat had to, like, veer off from her. So I don't think, because she was so close, she was in, like, the shallows, basically, and they were like, well, we can't follow because it's not deep enough. So, or there's rocks. I don't know. I don't know. The shallows, or there's the Blake Lively movie with the sharks, you know, like, I mean, who knows? Yeah, so basically that's how far I made it. I don't remember anything else after that. So I think it's valid to say when you make it that far. If I had fallen asleep in the first 5-10 minutes of the film, I wouldn't be reviewing this. I would try to make myself rewatch it and stay awake. But when you get this close, it's just valid to bring it up. It's like, hey, this movie put me to sleep. It might put you to sleep. Be aware. Do I fall asleep that often? No. I see a lot of movies in a year. I might fall asleep in 2 or 3 of them. You know, I see literally like at least 300 titles in a year, if not more. And I might fall asleep 3 times. So here's one of them. Anyway, I'm going to give The Young Woman in the Sea. I don't think it's a D film. I'm looking at like the quality and of the making and everything like that. I think it could have been an infinitely better film, but I also would not give this a fresh score if I was on the tomato meter. So my grade is a C minus. It just didn't do enough for me, and obviously put me to sleep. So, yeah, that's it. So, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I think it's always important just to be honest. I'm not going to try to pretend. I could have tried to pretend that I made it to the end. I didn't need to bring it up, but that's lying. So, anyway, I will see you guys on the other side.